Hamilton lost his temper on the radio twice in Zandvoort. Once, it looked like Leclerc's fault. The second time, he was aiming straight at his own pit wall. Did his teammate really cost him anything? Or was there a plan underneath that nobody bothered explaining to him? Start on Saturday, because Sunday doesn't make much sense without it. Hamilton qualified 5th, Leclerc 6th. Not a disaster, but well short of what the SF26 had shown all weekend. That put Ferrari into recovery mode before a single lap of the race had been run. Vasseur said it himself afterward. If Ferrari lost anything that weekend, it was Saturday more than Sunday. Rain looked likely before lights out, so Ferrari made its first gamble of the day. Both cars on softs, grabbing track position while it was still cheap. Worked instantly. Leclerc got a great launch and jumped from 6th to 4th, taking out Piastri and his own teammate on the way. Then the rain actually landed hard enough to put Verstappen into the wall and bring out the red flag. 25 minutes lost while marshals cleared everything up. By the restart, the shower had already passed. Barely 3 minutes of rain, so both Ferraris stayed on the same softs rather than switching to something built for conditions that no longer existed. Then Behrman clipped the barrier at turn 11, and there was yet another formation lap before anything could really begin. 2 red flags and a formation lap before the race had properly started. Once it did, Leclerc handed the position straight back. Piastri took it at turn 2, dropping him to 5th, Hamilton still 6th. A lap later, Hamilton mentioned some understeer into the corners. Then things went quiet for about 10 laps, just Ferrari and everyone else, settling into the race before a strategic split that would end up mattering a lot more than it looked at the time. Around lap 18, Leclerc closed in on Russell. Russell pitted the following lap and Ferrari had a call to make: cover it straight away and burn an early stop, or hold Leclerc out and hide what it was really planning. They chose to hide it. They even radioed Leclerc in as a decoy, just to make Mercedes and McLaren think a stop was coming. He never actually pitted. Internally, the team called it Plan B, while Hamilton stayed on Plan A, which meant his stint kept running well past his teammates. None of that is unusual in this sport. No team wants a rival engineer picking apart its radio in real time. But from that moment, Hamilton and Leclerc weren't racing the same race anymore. Different tyres, different plans, and neither one fully in the loop on what the other was doing. Leclerc pitted 3 laps after the decoy, went to mediums with a bit more front wing, and came out behind both Piastri and Hamilton, the position he'd won at the start, gone for a second time. Hamilton, meanwhile, reported his tyres still okay, pitted 2 laps later for the white marked hard, and rejoined 6th, 5 laps fresher than Leclerc, 8 fresher than Russell, a genuinely useful cushion, one that was about to sit stuck in traffic behind his own teammate. Around 50 laps to go, Leclerc was tucked behind Piastri, Hamilton roughly 7 seconds off the lead group. Nothing alarming, given how quick both cars actually were. Leclerc studied Piastri for 5 laps, then nipped past with a switchback out of turn 1. Hamilton did his own move soon after down the straight. 4th and 5th for Ferrari, Russell next in line, and the pace was right there with the top 3. That earlier understeer? Gone. Best the SF26 had looked all weekend. Leclerc got into Russell's toe, Hamilton right on his gearbox. A genuine podium shot for both, if Russell could be sorted out. Russell pitted. Ferrari called Leclerc in as well. He didn't come in. So there's Hamilton, sat right behind a teammate who's just been told to pit and hasn't moved, running tyres that are still clearly fresher, a gap that's only grown since the earlier split. Russell's up the road on rubber that's fading. Simple picture from where he's sitting, real pace, and a teammate who's supposedly about to vanish standing in the way of using it. I'm quicker than Charles, tyres are better. Not theatrics, just accurate. He was quicker, his tyres were better, and he was stuck behind a car he genuinely believed he could pass right when he thought Russell was there for the taking. Still no stop. 1 more lap goes by with Hamilton parked behind him. We are just losing time. Given what he could see, fair enough. Faster car, tyres in better shape, a target within reach. What he didn't know was what Ferrari was actually doing on the other end of the radio. Leclerc finally pits at the end of lap 44, not even cleanly, 3.4 seconds stationary, slow for a team at this level, and comes out 6 seconds behind Russell, worse off than a lap earlier would have left him. Hamilton, clear track ahead of him now, doesn't hold back. Great way of wasting time, guys, good job. On its own, that's a driver blaming a teammate for blocking a podium fight. It skips over what Ferrari was actually trying to pull off and why nobody bothered telling him. Ferrari wasn't shielding Leclerc here at Hamilton's expense. Vasseur's explanation afterwards makes that pretty clear. Today the execution wasn't perfect. We had a bad start with Charles, we lost a position to Piastri, then there was another bad pit stop with Charles, and with Lewis there was a misunderstanding. We didn't want to talk on the radio, but at that stage we expected to go to the end with Hamilton. We had Antonelli behind and he was struggling, so we told ourselves, let's go to the end. That's why we didn't swap the positions, because Charles had to pit anyway. We probably could have done better, but it was also difficult to explain the situation to Lewis without revealing our plan to the others. Leclerc was pitting regardless, so swapping the two cars first would have bought Hamilton maybe half a lap of clean air, hardly the kind of margin that decides a podium. Ferrari's real slip wasn't strategic. It was leaving Hamilton in the dark about a plan that made sense on paper, but sounded to him like nothing at all. Bundle that together with what happens next, and you miss something important. The two are separate stories entirely. Ferrari's next roll of the dice was stretching Hamilton's following stint to 30 laps on a worn hard, the longest of anyone's afternoon. Run him deep, then hand him a short, fresh final stint with less fuel than the cars around him, so he's simply faster than everyone in the closing laps. Brilliant if it comes off. Costly if the field just drives past him before that final stint ever arrives. For a stretch, it actually worked. Put him in the lead. Then Norris and Antonelli went by on tyres that were simply newer, and there wasn't much Hamilton could do about it. Watching two cars go past with no way to answer them, he got back on the radio. Are you using me as a guinea pig or what? What's going on? How long do you want to keep me out? Understandable. He had no idea how much longer this was meant to run, or whether Ferrari had simply misjudged how far that tyre had dropped off. Ferrari's side of it. They still believed the short, fresh stint would be worth more than what he was bleeding in the meantime. And Antonelli, struggling behind, kept the case for staying out alive a bit longer. Bring him in earlier, and he probably keeps track position through the middle stint, but loses that late punch. Leave him out, and the risk climbs, though so does the payoff if a safety car happens to land at the right moment. It did. Ocon retired, the VSC came out, and the whole field slowed together, shrinking the cost of a pit stop compared with stopping under green flags. Ferrari pounced, Hamilton in for softs, Leclerc stacked right behind him, a move that cost Leclerc a place to his own teammate, but got both cars onto fresh rubber almost for free. Without that VSC, this stint probably doesn't look nearly as clever in hindsight. 13 laps left, both Ferraris on fresh softs, ahead, Antonelli third, also fresh, Russell second on 17-lap-old hards, Norris leading on hards 10 laps old. A real tyre age edge over the two cars they actually needed to catch. Leclerc, 5 seconds back and shuffled out of the fight by how the stops fell, sounded annoyed again on the radio. Fairly, given the double stack cost him a spot through no fault of his own driving. Hamilton, still believing there was time on the table, asked what pace he needed to reel the group in. Antonelli answered that question for him a few laps later, sailing past Russell with barely a fight before chasing down Norris. Then it was Hamilton's turn, the real fight of the day. Russell held on at first. A driver on worn tyres rarely folds instantly against something quicker. It just costs both of them time. Leclerc rejoined from behind, adding pressure. Hamilton lost ground working out how to get through. Just as it reached the sharp end, a second VSC appeared, and this one went against him completely. 1 lap left when it all went green again, not enough to make the move stick. 4th for Hamilton, 5th for Leclerc. The same order the whole radio saga had been about from the start, only now with two considerably more frustrated drivers. The first outburst came from a driver with the pace and the tyres to attack Russell, held up by a plan nobody explained to him. The second had nothing to do with Leclerc, just a long shot on old rubber, and no clear sense of when it would end. Leclerc wasn't the villain in either lap. He was running his own race, and Ferrari's account makes clear he wasn't being favoured over Hamilton. The podium didn't slip away because of either radio. It slipped away because a second VSC hit at the worst possible moment against Russell, and because Saturday left both cars starting further back than their pace deserved. As Vasseur put it, probably the problem was more yesterday in qualifying. Ferrari's calls mostly held up under scrutiny. What didn't hold up was giving the driver behind the wheel the same picture the pit wall was working from. And that's really the whole story of Ferrari's afternoon in Zandvoort.